I will now go live and then we'll go from there. Okay. All right, great stuff. Welcome, everybody. I'm sorry we had a couple of technical difficulties with the live stream. So welcome to the last QGIS Open Day session of the day. We have Dror with us, who's going to give us a great presentation on building and making QGIS plugins. So I'm very excited, and for all of you who are following along on YouTube, please feel free to ask in the live chat as we go. I will post the questions, and if you'd like to join us in the Jitsi room, I will post that in the live chat. So over to you, Dror.
Right, thank you, Amy, and let's get started. I have a lot of slides, and not all of them are interesting. So I'm just gonna go through the who am I? I'm Dror. I'm a JS developer. You can look at the other videos on the channel for all of the jokes here. So if you want to follow along and create a QGIS plugin, what you're going to need is QGIS, a Python installation, and either text editor or an IDE. I use QGIS 3.28, which was the LTR when I started writing these slides. And the Python version I just installed from the Windows Store, like literally Windows Store, Microsoft Store, Python, and VS Code, which is comfortable for me, but everyone to each their own. That's it. That's all you need to create a QGIS plugin, because the whole point of a QGIS plugin is it can work inside QGIS. The Python isn't really necessary even. I mean, you can just use the QGIS Python installation. So, plugins you're going to need is the plugin builder free. I have no idea what were versions 1 and 2, but just plugin builder. There's no other plugin called plugin builder, so it's easy to find and install. And the plugin reloader, which saves a lot of time and effort from copying files between places. The plugin builder, what it does, it opens up a couple of forms, and inside it you basically fill out what's your class name, what's the plugin name, a short description, what's the first version, what's the minimal QGIS version. If you use any specific features which will only work on QGIS 3.16 and above, then this is the place to mention that. And you know, if you work at Acme, that's also the place to mention that. And what it does, it basically builds up the folder where you're going to have all of the other folders and files you're going to need to build like a base plugin. This also includes the initial versions of Python, of just a simple Python file for the main plugin file, and a UI file, which is just the UI. And that's actually, you choose that while you're filling out the forms in the plugin builder. You select what type of plugin you're making. It can be a tool button with dialog. It can be a tool button with a doc widget, or you can just create a processing provider. It's up to you. Once you're done with that, you'll get instructions about what's next. I'm assuming that once you're done filling forms, you want to click next, 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 and close this window, as I've done a lot of times. So these are the instructions. If you can't find them, you can just look up plugin builder and find Gary Sherman's site, where you can actually find the instructions. Some of them are a bit out of date. For example, there's like something about compiling resources. I haven't done that, I think, for the last 3 or 4 plugins I've built. It just works without that. Yeah, Amy.
Oh, just a note, Dror, are you sharing your slides yet, or just still in intro section?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Just a quick note.
Okay. Yeah, I forgot that.
There we go. Okay,
Right.
winning.
Okay. So that makes more sense now. Who am I slide? You can go back. What are you going to need? As I said, QGIS, Python, and text editor, and everything I said before that. The plugins you're going to need, plugin builder and plugin reloader. As you can see, there aren't a lot of options when you're looking them up through the plugin manager. Plugin builder, this is how the forms actually look like, just like forms. So you fill them up, click next, fill them up, click next. It's really a pretty simple process and a pretty annoying process. And again, just like me, this window pops up when you're finished with the forms. And I think most of the time, I think I had like the first couple of times I built a plugin, I accidentally closed it and I didn't know how to open it. So I just rebuilt the plugin, like rebuilt the entire form, refilled the entire form again, just to get the instructions. So here are the instructions. Here's the link to Gary's site, and that's it. Right. So PB tool, which is plugin builder tool, it's a Python library which you can install and will actually do a lot of the heavy lifting for things you don't really want to do manually or shouldn't do manually. And you can just install it by pip install pb tool. Assuming you have installation privileges, as you can see, I ran it as an administrator. Might be root, might be administrator, and pretty simple. I like to do the Python and pip install pb tool because that's just easier for me. But there's also sorry. So if you're successful, you can just open a new terminal, open a new command prompt, and just write pbt and get the help which you're seeing right now. And it can show you all of the commands that the plugin builder tool can do. It can clean, it can compile. Uh, I think I only use deploy and zip. So if you'll excuse me, I don't do everything extremely correctly. I just like to build plugins fast. So work better than me and read all of the other documentation. Now, assuming you're getting an error when you're trying to use it with Python version 3.12 and above, you're going to need to install setup tools. Now, everything I'm showing you here are actually, you can see it's my username on the computer. Uh, these are errors I got while preparing the slides because I'm working on a new computer and I just until I started making the slides, I didn't really have any of this set up. So learn from my mistakes. I mean, it's not very well documented everywhere. It's just a Python 3.12 issue. And of course, the Microsoft Store Python is 3.12. So pip install setup tools and it should work. Right. So once we have the plugin builder tool, we're going to want to make VS Code or your ID of choice to find the QGIS Python libraries, mostly because it's really, really annoying to keep seeing the I couldn't find the library error or something like that, or not get autocomplete because it's really important to have autocomplete because it's important to be lazy as a developer. Um, really important. We'll see it later. So it's pretty easy actually to get VS Code to find the QGIS Python libraries. I just created a new profile. I called it QGIS Python. Again, pretty simple, straightforward. you can manage profiles. And once I created the new profile, I went to settings and just did all of the autocomplete extra paths and analysis extra path and default interpreter, and just pointed it to the QGIS Python. You can see it right here. So just go to QGIS, use its Python, add the Python main folder and the lib and the DLLs and the script and the lib site package. Everything you can see in this slide, just copy, paste, change to wherever you install QGIS, and it should probably work. I mean, that way you don't really have to mess around with your environment variables. I don't remember how many times I screwed up my environment variables trying to get an this or another ID to find the QGIS libraries and autocomplete. And when you have other JS software ESRI installed, it usually messes things up even worse. So this is just a simple, easier version of just one profile settings JSON, and you're done, and autocomplete should work. The important ones, are these ones. And yep, once I've done that, I went into just into one of the files in one of my other plugins, and just made sure I can see an autocomplete. To those of you who are lazy or just prefer to edit things inside QGIS, that's also an option, but not a very good one. So it's your choice. If you use PyCharm or Spider or I don't know what other Python IDs are popular today, they all have pretty much the same functionality. I mean, this took like half a minute of Googling just to find out how I can find a specific set a specific interpreter path for PyCharm. Really, just look it up. Try profiles. Try interpreter path. Something like that. It should work out pretty fast. Right. So once we've set up our environment, which was, I think, that's like half of my slides, just setting up. Once you've set up your environment, almost half, you can start developing the plugin. So what do you actually need to know to write code for a plugin? Not a lot, really not a lot. The most important thing is what your plugin going to do. I mean, try and decide that before you start writing code. Don't say, I want to build a QGIS plugin, go into the plugin builder, fill out the form, and then try and find out what you want to do. Figure that out first. What is your plugin going to do? And then start making the other decisions. Once you know what your plugin is going to do, decide how your user interface is going to look like. 2 and 3 are pretty much the same decision, because it's not only important how the user interface is going to look like, but how the user is going to interact with the user interface. So before we get to that, general recommendations. Use version control, because you're going to forget where was that last change you made. I mean, not in the plugin I'm going to show you, but if you're doing something that is more than 3 lines of code, you're probably going to forget where was that last change. If you can, try to use only PyQGIS, PyQt, and libraries already installed with the default Python installation. And obviously, I think OSGeo and GDAL are also Python libraries you can find in QGIS. I'm not sure. Um, be lazy. Don't write the UI. You can build it. You have Qt Designer. You should have Designer. It's installed with QGIS every time. If you can wrap a couple of lines in a function, make them into a function, things usually tend to repeat themselves. There's really no reason not to make them as generic as possible, even if you're building like a two function plugin. Also, be lazy and don't write all of the code yourself if you can just copy it from other places. Like the PyQGIS developer cookbook, which has a lot of little pieces of code which you can usually just copy, change to your own variables, and just use. And read docs. I think when I'm developing a plugin, I think 90% of my time is just trying to find the right class, the right function, something like that, and not really writing code. Just trying to find out what every class can do and should do, and that's both for the QGIS, both for PyQGIS and for PyQt. And note that since QGIS version 3.28, we are using Qt version 6. So the docs in the PyQt sites are split, and you might, when you search, you might get results for PyQt 5, and PyQt 6 will actually have more options than PyQt 5. So that's something important. So let's get started. The example plugin I'm going to show is just a very simple plugin. It's going to let the user select a layer. It's going to, the user can then click on a button, and an alert with the layer source path will display. That's it. Select, click on OK, see a layer. So how will your UI look like for that? Basically, you don't need a lot of elements. I mean, the basic widget for a window, for a plugin window, it's just an empty window with an OK cancel buttons, and that's good enough. And on top of it, the only thing is now I have the OK. I have the OK button. What I need right now is the actual layer selector. So half of it is already done. Um, as I said, be lazy and use Qt Designer. You can see it's installed with QGIS with every installation, even if you installed it um, through the OSGeo installer, or GeoSgeo for Windows installer, or just a generic installation of QGIS, like a standard installation. So remember when you selected a plugin template? This is where you're supposed to actually use that. So we open up Qt Designer. We don't really need to create a new template. We already have a template ready. We have a whatever cool name you gave your plugin .ui file inside the directory. So just click on open and open your UI. That's it. And then start working on that. And don't create a new file and then start replacing them or give it a new name. Use what you have. If you want to add other windows, then create new files and look inside the plugin dialog.py file to see what's the best way to load up UI files. You don't really need to invent the wheel here. You just need to look at the code you already have and use that. So I selected, I think, a tool button with dialog, and this is what I got. just you see an empty window with what's called a Q dialog button box, which is by default has an OK and cancel buttons, and that's it. And we can start adding other Qt widgets into the window. So, for example, I can add like a layout if I want things to align perfectly. I applaud you if it works for you. I am usually terrible planning UI. Um, there's a lot of other options below. We're seeing only the top. You can see it's like a third of the widgets that are available. And the more important ones are just at the bottom, the QGIS custom widgets, which are, as you might have guessed, specific to QGIS and save you a lot of time. So, for example, if I add like if I add it's not here a combo box, I think it's just this one, a combo box widget, which is just a drop down selection. And I want to add all of the layers that I currently have inside QGIS to that. I can save a lot of code and a lot of effort by just using the QGIS map layer combo box or QGIS field combo box and things like that. Just save you a lot of time. And that also means that those specific QGIS widgets have specific QGIS properties. So if I, again, with the example of the layers, if I want to limit to only vector or only raster layers, I can do that here. I don't even need to use the code. I can, but I don't need to. Once you've added everything you want to add, like a label and a button and whatever, remember the names you gave to, and you gave to them. And this is important because you're going to use the names in your code, or just like me, you're going to reopen Qt Designer after you're pretty sure you remember the names, but you remember that the button box was in camel case, not snake case, and you have to go back and see why the function isn't connecting. So either either screenshot or just copy off the names in advance, or before you close Qt Designer, so you remember everything that's going on here.
Hack your own brain.
Yeah. Again, I did all of this in January when I built the slides, and I totally forgot the names of the buttons I had to use, and I had to reopen Qt Designer to just to look things up in the code. So once you've added the UI, if you want to actually see it open in QGIS, we now use the plugin builder tool, and just inside the plugin folder we put in ppt deploy and get the response that it can possibly know where it should deploy, because we didn't tell it to, and we didn't um, and we didn't put anything in the config, and we didn't specify the plugin path uh, uh, um, parameter, and we don't have anything set up as an environment variable. So ppt deploy, and we have a plugin path shorthand, which is just flag p, and your user path and the QGIS profile you want to place this in. And if you're not sure how to find that, you can go inside QGIS to settings, user profile, and open the active profile folder. And make sure you're also entering not just the profile folder, but Python plugins too. So it's important. Once you've done that, you're going to get this message. Press Y, and there's also a flag. You can just add like a flag Y, and it won't even ask you if you want to proceed or not. And that's it. And you can use now. After you've done that, you can open QGIS. You can configure the plugin reloader, which should appear in the plugins toolbar, to reload your plugin. This saves a lot of time because if you don't use the plugin reloader, the other option is closing and reopening QGIS every time.
Oh
So
no.
you use the plugin reloader. Again, sharing from my own experience of doing this the first time without the plugin reloader. So use the plugin reloader. And once you've done that, you can get your plugin if you haven't created an icon for it. So you'll get the default icon, which is that's a plug that you can plug in. I really just understood that. Huh. Okay, so as a, yeah, yeah, and I've built quite a lot of plugins. So
someone thought about it.
I haven't thought about it. No.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Okay. So I opened my plugin and I see that my Y is cut off because the box for the label is too small for the font size I selected, and the S is also cut, which didn't appear that way when I built it, but Qt sometimes has a bit of difficulty when adjusting to different screen sizes. Uh, so if you can let your give your UI elements a bit of space. So what I do for that, I go back into Qt Designer, I expand the label box, I redo PBT deploy, reload, and I can see that the S isn't cut and the Y isn't cut and everything is good. And obviously, you can and should do this for more important elements than just a label in a plugin that doesn't really do anything right now. Just this is basically the entire process of creating your UI just in one single slide. So let's start with building the actual code for the plugin. So the user is going to select a layer. Now I already, as we can see,
before we go into the building of the actual plugin, I don't know if it's relevant, but I do have a question from Abdullah that says, "Hi, really nice subject for the talk. And then please, can we also in the future do something about integrating custom functions into QGIS server?" I don't know if that is something you're interested in or something I would have to get a different speaker for, but it's a question.
Yeah, I've actually never done anything with QGIS server, so I'm really not sure.
Well then, Abdullah, I will go and have a chat to the QGIS server people, and hopefully we can get a talk on integrating custom functions. I will do some research for you. All right,
yeah,
sorry.
That's actually interesting. Like maybe it has like a WPS or something like that.
Yeah,
leverage.
yeah, absolutely.
Right. So as I was saying, as you can see in this slide, or almost see because I cropped it out, the map layer combo box that I selected is a QGIS map layer combo box. Now, this is important because where is it? Okay. This is important because I need to know what is the class of the element I'm using. Now, when I open up my again cool plugin name.py file, I can see how the plugin is constructed. So there are a lot of things here which, if you're building your first plugin, you're probably not going to use. Or just rely on whatever is already available and just add your own functions. So init, just like any other Python class, initiates the plugin class and this runs when the plugin is loaded into QGIS. And if it fails, then you just get an error message when you open up QGIS or try to reload the plugin. TR is the construction of the QGIS translator, which is connected to the plugin, but you actually have to translate strings you put inside your plugin. So you can't just rely on QGIS automatically translating things for you. You actually have to use that. Add action, which right before we started the lecture, I found something I missed inside it. So it adds the button or the for example, if you did a processing provider, then the processing providers that opens the plugin, and it changes between the plugin types. So add action is for the basic button window widget. I'm pretty sure there are differently named functions for the other plugin types, but don't hold me accountable to that. So init UI just runs add action pretty much, and unload runs when you uninstall or deactivate the plugin. And run is pretty long, so we're going to go over it in the next slide. What it does when you first run the plugin, it creates the plugin dialog and assigns it to self DLG inside the plugin class. Uh, if it's not your first start, or if you've already constructed dialog because it was your first start, then it displays your dialog. And as you can see, just like here, if you want to add more than one window, you can again go to the dialog.py file, see how it loads up UI files, do that, and just load up another class and initiate and use self DLG something or self DLG to show something like that. And result is what you get when you click on OK or cancel, and uh, basically you can't check what is the result if the user clicked on OK or cancel, because he shouldn't get the same result for both of them. Again, lessons learned. So whatever is written after result is what you should do when the user is using either OK or cancel, which can be just close the plugin and that's it. Right, so we want the user to select a layer, and we said our main class, or the main class for how he selects a layer, is QGIS map layer combo box. Now we're going to read the docs. So it's a slight hint, but we can see that this is a class that is specific to QGIS, and this is because it starts with QGS and not just Q, which is how the Qt Python the Qt widget starts, and also there's a little QGIS icon there. So we can go to the PyQGIS or QGIS Python API site and look up QGIS map layer combo box, find the class, and find out what methods and signals are connected to it. Signals are important because we want to know when the layer is changed. Maybe not. Depends on what you want to do. And methods are important because QGIS map layer combo box does not have properties, it only has methods. So we need to run a function if we want any data from it. Again, yay, QGIS specific Qt widgets. So We don't have to create a list of all the layers because we have the combo box. And we can, as you can see, filter or order the layers by the way we want. So as I said, you can, I'm pretty sure, do that in Qt Designer. Just select but let's check. Let's not just speak. Let's check. Right. So combo box. These are the properties, and specific properties should be below. As you can see, there are just the Q object properties, Q widget properties, because Q widget is inherited from Q object, and so on, Q combo box and Q map layer combo box. And you can add or write or you can basically select the filter here and turn things on and off. That's it. Show CRS is also cool. And you can exclude provider. And I don't know about specific provider exclusion, but again, these are things you can read docs about. So we don't have to build a list of all the layers. Great. How do we get the layer back? Now, assuming I don't want my function to run whenever I select a layer, I don't currently need to attach a function to the signal of layer changed. So I said when the user clicks on a button, then I want to see what's the source for the layer. And for that, we have the current layer method. Yeah, cool, easy. It just returns a QGIS map layer, which again is a very big class that also has vector layers and raster layers and has subclasses on top of that. Now, again, I don't currently need the signal, but it's important to know about signals because you're probably gonna want to build a, I don't know, probably. Some of you may want to build a plugin that actually listens to what the user does. So it's important to know about signals, which we will go over later. And yeah, this is later. Now we're now at later. Right. So we have the QGIS map layer, and we want to know how to display the layer source path. Okay. Now we have to understand from QGIS map layer how do I get a layer source path as like a string, not as a class, not as something else, just a string. So I go to the QGIS map layer page, and there I can see that QGIS map layer has a data provider method, which returns a QGIS data provider. This took a lot longer than I expected. I was pretty sure there's just like a URI and that I could just get it over with, but as you can see, it didn't work out that way. And from the QGIS data provider page, I finally found the function that returns a specific string, which is the data path or database connection string or URL if it's a URL. And right, so again, reading the docs and opening like a ton of tabs when you're trying to find something. Very, very important. So we are at the show and alert. So some of you may remember I told you to be lazy and copy from the QGIS Developer Cookbook. This is a great time to start being lazy. Every time is a great time to start being lazy. And you can just copy this example as is. I mean, there's literally nothing else you need for that. You may want to check the message bar to see what other levels, but I'm pretty sure it's also in there. You can just see it like an info or a warning or error, and I think there's another one, a success maybe, and just place the uh, place the string that you want and select the level. Yeah, this is just the bold string at the start. So we now know how to get the layer path or URI, and we now know how to display a message. And let's connect them to functions, because as I said, when you can put something in a function, put them in a function. And we have a function that returns the name and data source URI of the selected layer, which is pretty easy. It just from self, which is the plugin, DLG, the dialog, M map layer combo box, which is the name I should have assigned to the combo box, but kept the original name. Get current layer. Again, we know this is a QGIS map layer combo box. We know it has the current layer method, and we know what it returns. Uh, QGIS map layer also has a name, a name method, which returns a string with the name, and the data provider, that's URI, and I return both of them. I have another function that takes this information and puts this inside a message. Simple info message. That's it. Nothing more than that. And again, this is pretty simple. Now, how do I connect this to a button? This is also important. So, uh, to connect this, we are going to see what signal a Q push button, because it's a Q push button, not a QGIS push button, meaning it's a Qt, um, it's a Qt class and not QGIS, PyQGIS class. Uh, and I'm going to save you the time because it doesn't appear in the Q push button page. You have to check out inherited methods and signals and things like that. And it's inherited the clicked signal from Q abstract button. And the next slide actually has something funny about that. But right now, connecting the actual function, to run the function when the user clicks on a button, it's as simple as from the dialog, get the element, get the signal name, and connect function, just like that. So when I construct my dialog, I get it back at the push button because, again, I haven't done any naming on these elements. Uh, Clicked signal, connect this function. Uh, that's it. This is the function name I gave earlier, which runs the other function. So it gets the whatever layer is currently selected and should display a message with it. Now, again, you have to look up in the docs, and I know it's annoying, and I know you're going to open a lot of tabs because I do that as well. But it's important, and you can pretty much guess what signals are going to be for UI elements because like scroll, selection change, clicked, things like that. You get the hang of it pretty fast, and as you can see, push buttons are mostly clicked. They have other signals like pressed or released, but they're usually clicked. Most people just click on a button and expect something to happen when you click on a button. And the Qt detailed description also says exactly that. So our plugin just does that. I loaded up in this GIF two layers, and whenever I click, I can see what layer was clicked and what's the data source for it. And we don't actually have to see it in the GIF, but I can just show you. So again, this is my plugin. I can see in the plugin reloader that that's what currently is loaded. It's called example plugin. And if it's something, by the way, that I didn't add to the presentation, or at least not completely, but in the add action option, in the add action default function, you're getting the text parameter is what is displayed when you hover over the button. So when I first connected to the call with Amy, I noticed that when I hovered over the button, it said plugins toolbar. And that's when I realized I forgot to change that. And you just can, just go to self, blah, 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 and to add action text and set whatever text you want. And this is how you use the translator, by the way. That's also important. So how the plugin works, I currently have two layers. One is in a GeoPackage and the other one is just OpenStreetMap. Click, open, click, and I can see the GeoPackage layer. That's it. I've now constructed an entire plugin, and theoretically it could have taken like an hour. It took a little more than that because, again, a lot of mistakes along the way, but it worked. So I think now we have time for questions. Yay.
Brilliant stuff. If anyone in the live chat has any questions, we don't have any right now. Please feel free to ask, and I will post them, of course, to Draw. And yeah, anyone who wants to join in the meeting are, of course, welcome on the link that I sent.
Yeah, and
great.
I'll add these slides to the wiki, just a link to the slides.
Fantastic.
I mean, probably in like 10 minutes, but yeah, it should be there soon.
Brilliant stuff. I don't know, Draw, if you kind of go into it, but so in Qt Designer, I know that there, when you add your like little widgets and bits and pieces to the page, you have to consider there's I did this some time ago because we were looking at plugins. You have to consider tab order apparently as something. Can you explain a little bit more about that to me?
I haven't worked with tabs quite some time now. But basically, in widgets that do have tabs, which I think was it the list view? No, there's something with tabs. Do you remember? Yeah, tab widget, obviously.
Yeah.
Tab order. Yeah.
Sorry, totally left field there. It was the only thing that didn't really make sense to me in Qt. I mean, Qt is a fantastic way of adding and making plugins.
Yeah. From what I remember, it was pretty comfortable. We just used the tabs. I mean, you just check whatever index you're on. Oh, you mean like inside the tabs when you add things?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, you just switch between them here.
Okay.
And in the object inspector, so like I add a checkbox into the second tab, and when I go back, I can add like a push button in the first one, and that's how you switch between them. It's kind of like inside the layout designer, like the print layout in QGIS. You sometimes just have to go to the side and see what you already have, and there's also the important part of naming things, so you remember where everything is. So tabs can have names as well. So not just like the display titles, but actual names. So an example for this, I can show you a plugin which I built again quite a long time ago, but the Israeli Open Data Loader, which has tabbing. I hope still operational because I haven't worked on it in years. So the tabs have names here, and you can switch between them and get a different a list view inside each one of them. So you can actually see that the list doesn't really take all of the space inside the tab. You can see like this little sliver where there's a difference between where the list is and the tab ends. So again, it's a lot of playing around, and for those of you who are really good at design, I recommend use the layouts, either form or grid, and the spacers, because they really help keep things in check. Which, as you can see from my original plugin, I don't really have a sense for. But again, this wasn't built in a lot of time, and that's it.
Great. I see. Oh, I'm probably not going to say this right. I do apologize. Turdicle asks if you can indeed share the presentation.
Yeah, I'll add that. I'll add the link to the wiki. I think I can even do that right now.
Great.
We're not going to keep people until then. But yeah.
No. And then my last question on this sort of thing. So say I have this cool workflow and I've made a simple plugin that I think will help people. How do I go about perhaps publishing that to QGIS?
Right. So once you're done with building your plugin, so let's go back to VS Code. So once I'm done with building my plugin and everything like that, again, I can run PBT and see what my options are. And the last option is PBT zip, package the plugin into a zip, suitable for uploading. And where do you upload QGIS plugins to? QGIS Hub, of course. So I run that, and it creates a zip build folder, which the plugin knows to ignore, because otherwise it just takes everything and puts them inside. And inside you can create you can get an cool plugin name .zip, and just go to QGIS Hub, and there's a let's go back slides. Right. So you can go to QGIS. It's plugins.qgis, right? Yeah. So plugins.qgis, and once you log in, you can go to my plugins and upload. It's a pretty simple process. It's also important to read the notes about plugins. For example, first of all, there's a learn how to publish your plugins note. But there's also some general notes about do's and don'ts when you're building a plugin. So again, a pretty good first stop before you select that. And then when you go to plugins, there's a big upload a plugin button, and that's it. Again, when you're done, PBT zip and upload. And for the first time you upload a plugin, it can take some time. I mean, I think you guys at Cartosa do most of the checking, right?
Yes, we do.
Yeah. So, and basically, once they check that the plugin is fine and working, and wasn't built without any reason, then you can just you'll see it. You'll get an email that it's been updated, and you can see it there. And you can basically, when you update a new version of a plugin, so you can go to manage, for example, and no, sorry, my plugins. And if I go here, I should have a manage and add version. So when I add a new version, I just go to manage, add version, and pretty much get the same upload. But it takes less time to get a new version up than the first version.
Great. Awesome. So that's all of my questions. I have put the link into the live chat for the wiki, which is where Adrol will kindly put the slides for anyone who wants
Putting
to
them in right now. Yeah.
Brilliant, brilliant stuff. All right, then that brings us to the end of the QGIS Open Day. Dror, do you have any last comments or thoughts?
No. If there are any Hebrew speakers here today, then we have our own QGIS Open Day tonight. So you're welcome to join us in 4.5 hours. And I think that's it. That's like my plug for today.
Absolutely, I agree. It's always good to bring up that this is the QGIS Open Day for pretty much everyone around the world, but we really encourage country level user groups to host their own user days, host them in your language, in your area, in your country. And it is, it's community based and community driven. Everything we use is open source. So if you need any advice, pop me an email. My email is, of course, in the wiki for all the QGIS Open Days. And I'm quite happy to help you set up your own sort of user group based open day if you'd like to do so. And that is, of course, what Dror has done. And I wish you all the best for your.
Not alone. Not alone.
Oh, no, of course. Of course. So I wish you all the best.
I'm not speaking again today. I'm just I'm doing my own Amy impression today. So,
you're aiming today.
Yeah, I'm aiming today.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Dror, and we hope to see you again soon.
Thank you. And the slides are already in the wiki, so
brilliant.
Have fun.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining for this month's QGIS Open Day. The next Open Day will, of course, be next month, Friday. Thank you, everyone, and goodbye.